Everything goes to Ethan, my mother's will declared. I wasn't even at the reading. Then they demanded my empire. You owe us. My lawyer's one line changed everything. But what's next? The rain was relentless, hammering Seattle's streets like 1,000 tiny fists, blurring the city lights into a smear of neon and despair. I stood frozen in my penthouse office, the glass wall behind me reflecting the storm's fury and my own trembling hands. My phone buzzed on the desk, its screen glowing with a name I hadn't seen in years. Daniel Quinn. My father. The man who'd spent my childhood building a shrine to my brother Ethan while I was left to scrape for scraps of their attention. My heart thudded, a warning I ignored as I swiped to answer. Harper. His voice crackled. Too warm, too eager. We need to talk. I should have hung up right then. Instead, I let those words pull me into a vortex that would nearly destroy everything I'd built. Truth Pulse Media, my empire, my sanity. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, to the girl who learned to fight in the shadows of a family that never saw her, to the spark that ignited a war I never wanted but couldn't escape. I'm Harper Quinn, 32, CEO of Truth Pulse Media, a news outlet that's taken down cartels, exposed senators, and made enemies of the kind of people who don't forgive. My life now is a far cry from the Seattle suburbs where I grew up, in a craftsman house with creaky floors and a backyard where my father's barbecues were more about Ethan's latest art project than family bonding. Back then, I was the invisible daughter, the one who faded into the wallpaper while my older brother Ethan soaked up every ounce of our parents' love like a sponge. Margaret and Daniel Quinn weren't cruel parents, not in the way that makes headlines. They fed me, clothed me, kept a roof over my head. But their affection, that was rationed. And Ethan got the lion's share. I was 3 years younger, the quiet one, the small one, the one who learned early that to be seen I had to be extraordinary. Spoiler alert, even that wasn't enough. My earliest memory of this lopsided love was my 8th birthday. I'd spent weeks dreaming of a party. Nothing extravagant, just a few friends from school, a chocolate cake with rainbow sprinkles, maybe some balloons. I'd drawn up a guest list in my spiral notebook, doodling stars around their names. The morning of my birthday, I woke up buzzing, practically floating down the stairs in my favorite purple dress, but the kitchen wasn't filled with balloons or the smell of baking cake. Instead, my parents were huddled around Ethan, their faces lit up like he'd just won an Oscar. "Harper, isn't it amazing?" my mother gushed, barely glancing at me. "Ethan's painting won first place in the city art contest." My father clapped Ethan's shoulder, beaming. "He's going to the state finals. Our boy's a star." I stood there, clutching the banister, my dress suddenly feeling too tight. "What about my party?" I asked, my voice small. My father looked up, startled, like he'd forgotten I existed. "Oh, kiddo, happy birthday," he said, distracted. "We'll have to reschedule. Ethan needs to prep for the finals this weekend." Reschedule. That word stung like a slap. I didn't get a party that year. Instead, I got a $10.00 gift card to a bookstore, handed to me as an afterthought, and a grocery store cake we ate in silence before Ethan's practice session for his next art show. My mother didn't even light the candles. I remember staring at that cake, the frosting melting under the kitchen lights, and promising myself I'd never let their neglect define me. That was the day I started building walls that would protect me but also keep me locked in a fight I didn't yet understand. The pattern only deepened as I grew up. My straight-A report cards were met with a nod and a, "That's what we expect from you, Harper." Ethan's C's and B's, though, those triggered celebrations, dinners at Red Lobster, new art supplies, my mother's endless chatter about his potential. In 7th grade, I poured my heart into a journalism project, an exposé on our school's outdated cafeteria food that won the district's top prize. I'd spent nights interviewing lunch ladies, digging through budget reports, even sneaking into the kitchen to snap photos of moldy bread. The award ceremony was at 4 p.m. and I'd saved seats for my parents, my heart pounding with hope. They never showed. Later, I found out they'd driven 2 hours to Ethan's art exhibition, where he'd sold a single painting for $50, 0 cents. When I confronted them, my blue ribbon clutched in my hand, my mother sighed. "Harper, you know these things come easy to you. Ethan needs our support more. He gets nervous about his shows." I taped that ribbon to my bedroom wall that night, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. I'd succeed despite them, not because of them. But the danger crept in early, too, in ways I didn't recognize until years later. When I was 12, I woke up coughing, my bedroom filled with smoke. Flames licked the curtains and the heat pressed against my skin like a living thing. I stumbled out, choking, my bare feet burning on the hardwood. The fire department said it was an electrical fault, but I remembered Ethan's strange smirk that morning, the way he'd lingered near my room with a lighter he wasn't supposed to have. I had no proof, just a gnawing suspicion that his jealousy over my science fair win the week before had turned deadly. That fire was the first time I realized my family wasn't just neglectful, they could be dangerous. I started sleeping with my door locked, a habit I carry to this day. High school was a grind of self-reliance. I joined the school newspaper, debate team, anything to fill the hours while my parents ferried Ethan to art camps and galleries. I learned to cook because sometimes dinner was forgotten in the chaos of Ethan's latest masterpiece. I got my learner's permit at 15, driving myself to journalism competitions because no one else would. At 16, I landed a part-time job at a local coffee shop, saving every penny for SAT prep books and college applications. Ethan, meanwhile, got a new laptop for his digital art phase, a sleek MacBook my parents couldn't really afford. That same year, I won a National Journalism Award for a piece on teen homelessness, a story I'd spent months researching, shadowing kids on Seattle's streets. The ceremony was televised locally, a rare moment I thought might finally make my parents see me. I was midway through my speech, my voice steady despite the butterflies, when the camera panned to the audience. There were my parents, cheering, not for me but for Ethan, who'd just sold a painting during a commercial break. The clip went viral, not for my words, but for their oblivious applause. Social media roasted me, girl's speech drowned out by her own parents' shade. I laughed it off at school, but alone in my room, I cried until my eyes swelled shut. That humiliation wasn't just a moment, it was a wound that never fully healed. The favoritism wasn't subtle anymore. When Ethan failed to make the art school's elite program, my parents bought him a convertible to cheer him up. When I got accepted to Columbia Journalism School with a full scholarship, they nodded and said, "Well, you've always been the studious one." My graduation as valedictorian should have been my triumph. I stood at the podium, delivering a speech about resilience, scanning the crowd for my parents. They were there, but distracted, fussing over Ethan's tie as he preened for a selfie. At the family dinner afterward, they surprised Ethan with a $5,000 0 cents check for his art supplies. My gift, a leather-bound notebook with "Keep Writing" engraved on it. Practical, sensible, just like me. "You don't need flashy things, Harper," my mother said when she saw my face fall. "You're going to Columbia. Ethan needs this to find his path." That night, as I packed for college, I heard them in the next room, planning Ethan's art tour in Sydney. It was the soundtrack of my childhood, Ethan's dream center stage, mine relegated to the wings. Columbia was my escape. For the first time, I wasn't Ethan's sister or the smart one. I was Harper Quinn, journalism major, hungry to carve my name into the world. My roommate, Zoe, didn't know my family's baggage, and that anonymity was a gift. My scholarship covered tuition, but I still needed money for books, rent, life. I worked 20 hours a week at the campus library, another 10 slinging coffee on weekends. Ethan, meanwhile, was at art school in Sydney, his tuition, housing, and even his bar tabs covered by my parents. "Your brother isn't as driven as you," my mother said during one of our rare calls. "He needs to focus on his art without distractions." I swallowed the urge to scream that I, too, wanted to focus on my studies, my dreams. Instead, I threw myself into my work, my fingers stained with ink and my nights lit by laptop screens. My sophomore year changed everything. I took an investigative journalism class with Professor Clara Voss, a legend who'd exposed Watergate-level scandals. Our assignment was to dig into a local issue. I chose Columbia's admissions process, sniffing out rumors of backdoor deals for rich kids. Nights in the library turned into weeks, cross-referencing donor lists, hacking ethically, mostly, into old email archives. My exposé revealed a pay-to-go scheme with names, big names. When I presented it to Clara, her eyes widened. "This isn't just a class project, Harper," she said. "This could be your career." She helped me polish it, and when it hit the student paper, it went viral. National outlets picked it up. A dean resigned. I was 19, and I'd tasted power, the kind that comes from truth. Clara pulled me aside after class. "You've got a gift, kid. Don't waste it. Build something with it." That seed would grow into Truth Pulse Media, but not yet. I had battles to fight first. The summer before my junior year, I went home for Thanksgiving, my first visit in months. I'd stayed on campus for spring break, saving money, but I missed the Pacific Northwest's gray skies. When I walked into the house, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, my parents barely looked up. "Harper, you're here," my mother said, stirring cranberry sauce. "Ethan's been home since Monday. He's upstairs prepping for his Sydney show." Dinner was a one-man showcase of Ethan's life. His new gallery deal, his influential art professor, his plans to tour Australia. I sat quietly answering their half-hearted questions about school before the conversation swung back to Ethan. After dinner, washing dishes, I overheard my parents in the study. "We should tell Harper about the money," my father said, hesitant. "Why upset her?" my mother replied. "She's fine with her scholarship. Ethan needs the college fund for his tour." I froze, the dish towel slipping from my hands. That fund was for both of us. I'd used a fraction for textbooks, assuming the rest was mine for grad school or a safety net. I stormed into the study. "You're giving Ethan my money?" My mother's face hardened. "Don't eavesdrop, Harper. It's rude." "Answer me," I demanded. My father sighed. "Ethan's tour is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. You've got your scholarship. You're set." "Set?" I echoed, my voice shaking. "I'm set because I had to be, because you've never given me a choice." The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. I left the next day, cutting my breaks short. Back at Columbia, I doubled down on my work, channeling the hurt into my stories. But the danger followed me. That spring, driving to my first internship at a Chicago paper, my car's brakes failed on a winding cliffside road. I swerved, tires screeching, barely stopping inches from a drop. A mechanic later confirmed the lines had been cut. I had no proof it was Ethan, but the timing. Days after I'd won a prestigious internship, he'd mocked. Felt too convenient. I started looking over my shoulder, my trust in my family eroding like sand in a storm. My senior year, I was on fire. My exposés made waves, from campus corruption to city hall kickbacks. But Ethan's shadow lingered. He'd leaked one of my drafts to a rival outlet, a story I'd spent months building. It ran under someone else's byline, and I nearly lost my internship. Zoe found me crying in our dorm. a rare crack in my armor. "He's not worth your tears," she said, handing me a coffee. "Use it. Make him regret it." I did. I graduated top of my class, but my parents didn't come. Ethan had a gallery opening in Melbourne. A text from my mother arrived as I crossed the stage. "Congrats, Harper. Sorry we couldn't make it. Ethan says hi." I pocketed my phone, smiled for Zoe's camera, and vowed to build a life they couldn't ignore. Post-graduation, I stayed in Chicago renting a shoebox apartment that smelled of stale pizza. I launched Truth Pulse Media from a folding table, my laptop humming through endless nights. I was 22, broke, and unstoppable. My first big story, a deep dive into a cartel's money laundering scheme, put Truth Pulse on the map. It also put a target on my back. One night, after filing the piece, I heard footsteps in my office stairwell. The door rattled, and a shadow loomed through the frosted glass. I grabbed a letter opener, heart pounding, and called 911. The intruder fled, but not before leaving a note. "Stop digging, or you're next." I didn't stop. I couldn't. Truth was my oxygen, and I was suffocating without it. Ethan, meanwhile, drifted through art fads, paintings, sculptures, NFTs, each funded by my parents' dwindling savings. They'd sold stocks, dipped into retirement, all for his genius. My calls home were brief, obligatory. They'd ask about my little website, then pivot to Ethan's latest venture. "He's finding himself," my mother would say. I'd bite my tongue, wondering if my own path ever mattered to them. Then I met Liam Hayes, a war photographer with a crooked smile and a heart as fearless as mine. He saw me, not the CEO, not Ethan's sister, just Harper. We fell hard, fast, planning a future that felt like home. When I told my parents we were engaged, my mother sounded happy. For a moment. "That's wonderful, Harper. June weddings are classic. Ethan could be your best man." I cut her off. "We're thinking fall. Liam loves the lead." "Oh, but June's better," she insisted. "Ethan's free then." Even my wedding was becoming about him. Then came the call that shattered my world. My father, his voice hollow. "Your mother's sick, Harper. Leukemia. Stage 4. I flew to Seattle the next day, my carry-on stuffed with hope and dread. The house felt like a museum, every surface a relic of a childhood I'd outgrown. My mother was a ghost of herself, her fierce energy drained. Ethan was there, playing the dutiful son, his art career conveniently on pause. I tried to help, cooking meals, researching trials, sitting by her bed. But Ethan's presence was a wall I couldn't breach. One night I overheard them. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Ethan," my mother whispered. "Harper tries, but she's so distant." Ethan's voice was smug. "She's always been about her work, Mom, not us." I stood in the hallway, invisible as ever, my heart cracking like glass. The final blow came when Ethan lied to keep me away. He told the hospital I was too busy to visit, barring me from her room. I found out from a nurse, her pitying look worse than the lie itself. When I confronted him, he shrugged. Mom didn't need the stress. I left Seattle the next morning, promising to return. I didn't know it was the last time I'd see her alive. 2 months later, my father called. "She's gone, Harper." I booked a flight, but Ethan's voice cut in. "Maybe wait. Too many people upset her." I froze, my laptop half open. "She has days, Ethan." "I've been here," he said. "You haven't." 3 days later, she was gone. I found out from my aunt's text, not my family. The exclusion wasn't new, but it was final. I arrived for the funeral, a stranger in my own childhood home. Ethan played the grieving son, accepting condolences like royalty. My father barely met my eyes. The obituary listed Ethan's art career in glowing detail. I was a footnote. Survived by Harper. At the reception, I overheard whispers about a will reading yesterday. I cornered my father. You had it without me? He shifted, uneasy. It was a formality, Harper. I'm her daughter, I snapped. He turned away, ending the conversation. That night, in my old room, now Ethan's storage space, I found an envelope from the lawyer. Inside, the will. Everything, house, savings, heirlooms, left to Ethan. A note in my mother's shaky hand. Harper's strong. Ethan needs this more. I read it on the plane back to Chicago, the words blurring through tears. Liam held me as I sobbed, the airport fading around us. Back in Chicago, I buried myself in Truth Pulse. We were breaking stories weekly, our staff growing, our enemies multiplying. Then, a year after my mother's death, Truth Pulse exposed a trafficking ring, landing me on Time's cover. My phone rang. My father. Harper, we saw the article. Your company's incredible. His warmth was jarring, unnatural. Ethan and I want to visit, reconnect. I should have said no, but that girl who craved their love, she said yes. They arrived in Chicago, marveling at my penthouse, my view of Lake Michigan. This place must have cost a fortune, Ethan said, his eyes calculating. Over brunch, the mask fell. We're family, my father said. Truth Pulse is a family achievement. We supported you. I laughed, bitter. Supported me? You barely showed up. Ethan leaned in. We want 25% of Truth Pulse, and $10 million 0 cents. It's only fair. I stared, stunned. Fair? My voice rose. Was it fair when you canceled my birthday? When you missed my graduation? When you kept me from Mom's deathbed? Ethan's face twisted. We'll sue, Harper. Your branding, my ideas, Dad's old journals prove it. My father nodded. We've got a lawyer. Family shares success. I stood, trembling. Get out. They left, but not before Ethan's parting shot. Mom would be ashamed of you. 3 days later, a lawsuit landed on my desk. Ethan and Daniel Quinn versus Harper Quinn and Truth Pulse Media. They claimed my success was theirs, built on their support. It was absurd, but the threat was real. I hired Sofia Reyes, a legal shark who called it a shakedown. But the battle was just beginning, and the secrets I'd uncover about my family, my mother's will, and Ethan's dangerous allies would push me to the edge of everything I thought I knew. The Chicago skyline glittered through my penthouse window, a constellation of ambition that usually steadied me. But tonight, as I clutched the legal summons in my hand, the city felt like a cage. Ethan and my father, Daniel, had done the unthinkable. They'd sued me, claiming Truth Pulse Media, my blood, my sweat, my sleepless nights was somehow their legacy. The audacity burned, but beneath the anger was something sharper. Fear, not of losing the company, I'd fight to my last breath for that, but of the secrets they'd unearthed, the ones hinted at in my mother's cryptic letter, the ones I'd found in a hidden camera in my office. My family wasn't just greedy, they were dangerous, and I was about to discover how far they'd go to tear me down. I'm Harper Quinn, and this is the story of how I faced a war I didn't start, uncovered truths that shattered me, and found a purpose bigger than the pain. Buckle up, because this fight nearly broke me, but it also made me unstoppable. The summons landed on my desk 3 days after Ethan and my father stormed out of my penthouse, their parting words echoing like a gunshot. Mom would be ashamed of you. I'd laughed then, a bitter, hollow sound, but now, staring at the legal jargon, my stomach churned. Richard and Ethan Quinn versus Harper Quinn and Truth Pulse Media. They claimed familial intellectual property and unjust enrichment, alleging my success was built on their support. Support? The word was a mockery. My childhood flashed before me. Missed birthdays, ignored awards, the fire in my bedroom at 12 that I still believed Ethan had set. Support was the last thing they'd given me. I tossed the papers onto my desk and called Sophia Reyes, the best intellectual property attorney in the Northeast. Her voice was steel over the phone. "This is a shakedown, Harper, legally baseless but messy. They're banking on you settling to avoid the headline." I leaned back in my chair, the city lights blurring. "I don't settle, Sophia. I fight." Sophia's office was a fortress of glass and chrome, a fitting backdrop for a woman who'd crushed corporate giants. She met me the next morning, her sharp eyes scanning the summons. "They're claiming Ethan's creative ideas shaped Truth Pulse's branding," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "And your father's mentorship in high school laid the groundwork for your exposés. It's laughable, but public perception is their weapon. Truth Pulse thrives on trust. A family feud in the tabloids could hurt you." I nodded, my jaw tight. "They've already started. Ethan leaked photos to the Chicago Star, old family pictures twisted to paint me as a cold, ungrateful daughter." Sophia's lips curled into a grim smile, and we hit back harder. "We don't just win this case, Harper. We bury them." The war began quietly, in late-night strategy sessions with Sofa and my fiancé, Liam Hayes. Liam, with his war photographer's instincts, saw the battlefield clearly. "This isn't just about money," he said, pouring me a coffee as we pored over documents in our living room. "Ethan's desperate. Your mother's will gave him everything, but he's burned through it. And your father, he's enabling him, like always." I nodded, my fingers tracing the edge of a letter I'd found after the funeral, tucked in my mother's old jewelry box. Her shaky handwriting read, "Harper, there's a truth you need to know, but I couldn't tell you. Forgive me." The words haunted me. What truth? Why hide it? I hadn't told Liam yet, not because I didn't trust him, but because I wasn't ready to face what it might mean. Was it about the will, Ethan? Something DACA? The first blow came a week later, at a charity gala for Chicago's Children's Hospital. I was there to announce Truth Pulse's $500,000 0-cents donation, a spotlight moment for the company. I wore a sleek black gown, my hair swept up, projecting the confidence I'd honed over years of dodging corporate sharks. But as I sipped champagne, a waiter handed me a martini I hadn't ordered. "Compliments of a fan," he said, vanishing into the crowd. I raised the glass, the olive glinting under the chandeliers, when Liam grabbed my wrist. "Don't," he whispered, his eyes scanning the room. "Something's off." He took the glass to a corner where a friend, a former CIA chemist, tested it with a discreet kit. The results came back in minutes, laced with a sedative, enough to knock me out, maybe worse. My heart pounded as Liam's friend traced the waiter, who'd fled. Later, we learned he'd been paid by an art patron linked to Ethan's latest gallery flop. The realization hit like a fist. My brother wasn't just suing me. He was trying to silence me. The gala incident wasn't isolated. Days later, I found a micro camera in my office, hidden in a smoke detector. It was military grade, transmitting to an unknown server. Liam called in a cybersecurity expert, Alex, who traced the signal to a shell company in Nevada. "This isn't amateur," Alex said, his face grim. "Someone with serious resources is watching you." I thought of Ethan's new patron, the one who'd paid for the poisoned drink. Was it him? Or something bigger? The camera's discovery sent Truth Pulse into lockdown. We swept every office, every laptop, every phone. My team, loyal, fierce, rallied around me, but the paranoia crept in. Who could I trust? My family had already betrayed me. Now, their reach felt endless. The lawsuit gained traction, fueled by Ethan's media stunts. He leaked more photos to tabloids, at me at 16, looking sullen at his art show, captioned as Harper's Heartless Years. The headlines screamed, "Media mogul shuns family for fame." Social media erupted, with trolls calling me a soulless capitalist. Truth Pulse's stock dipped 8% overnight, spooking our investors. I stood in our newsroom, facing my team, their eyes searching for reassurance. They want to break us, I told them, my voice steady despite the storm inside. But Truth Pulse isn't just a company. It's a mission. We expose lies. We don't bow to them. They cheered, but the weight of their trust pressed on me. I couldn't let them down. Sophia's team dug into discovery, and the findings were a gut punch. Ethan had blown through $2 million, 0 cents of my mother's inheritance, in 18 months. Private jets, failed NFT ventures, a penthouse he couldn't afford. My father had taken a secret loan from a mob-connected lender in Seattle, tying them to dangerous players. Worse, emails from Ethan to a consultant named Victor Russo, dated weeks before my mother's death, laid out a plan. When Harper's company hits big, we claim our share. Mom's will sets the stage. They'd plotted this while my mother was dying, while I was barred from her bedside. The betrayal wasn't new, but its calculation was staggering. I sat in Sophia's office, the emails trembling in my hands. They didn't just want my money, I whispered. He orchestrated everything. The danger escalated. Leaving a late-night meeting, I was ambushed in a parking garage. 2 men in ski masks grabbed me, their grip bruising as they dragged me toward a van. I fought, kicking, screaming, my self-defense training kicking in. Liam, who'd insisted on tailing me, appeared like a ghost, tackling one thug. The other fled as Liam pinned his target, a hired muscle with no ID but a burner phone linked to Russo's network. "They're not playing, Harper," Liam said later, his voice tight as he bandaged my scraped arm. "This is bigger than your family." I nodded, but my mind was on that letter from my mother. A truth you need to know. Was this it? Had she known about Ethan's ties? The mob? Something worse? The courtroom clash came a month later, broadcast live on cable news. Ethan's lawyer, Desmond Porter, a slick opportunist, accused me of fraud, claiming I'd stolen Ethan's branding ideas. The cameras caught my reaction, a flicker of rage I couldn't hide. Porter played to the gallery, waving my father's old journals filled with doodles and half-baked marketing notes from the 90s. "Harper Quinn built her empire on her family's genius," he declared. The absurdity would have been funny if it weren't so damaging. Sophia dismantled him with surgical precision. "Mr. Quinn," she said, addressing Ethan, "can you explain Truth Pulse's proprietary algorithm for tracking dark web transactions?" Ethan stammered, his art school charm useless against her logic. "And these ideas you claim Harper stole, can you confirm they're identical to generic marketing templates from 2005? The courtroom snickered. Porter's face reddened. But the real blow came when Sophia revealed Ethan's emails to Russo, projected on a screen for the world to see. The room went silent, the air heavy with Ethan's exposed lies. Outside the courthouse, the media swarmed. "Harper, are you ashamed of betraying your family?" a reporter shouted. I froze, the question slicing through me. Liam squeezed my hand, grounding me. "I'm proud of what I've chosen." "Proud of Truth Pulse," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "It's built on exposing the truth, not hiding from it. My family's lies don't change facts." The cameras flashed, but I walked away, my head high, Liam's hand steady in mine. The crowd parted, their questions trailing behind me like smoke. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The truth was my weapon, and I was just getting started. But the victory felt hollow as we drove back to the penthouse. The emails Sophia had uncovered gnawed at me. Ethan and my father had planned this betrayal while my mother was dying, and the mention of Victor Russo, a name tied to whispers of organized crime, sent chills down my spine. Who was he? A financier, they'd called him, but the kidnapping attempt, the poisoned drink, the hidden camera, All pointed to something far darker than a greedy family squabble. And then there was my mother's letter. Those cryptic words, "A truth you need to know." I hadn't shown it to Sophia yet, hadn't even told Liam the full extent of it. The letter felt like a Pandora's box, and I wasn't sure I was ready to open it. But the secrets were piling up, and I could feel them pressing in, threatening to crack the armor I'd built around my heart. That night, I sat on our balcony overlooking Lake Michigan, the city's pulse humming below. Liam joined me, his presence a quiet anchor. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft but piercing. I stared at the water, its surface rippling under the moonlight. "I don't know," I admitted, the words heavy. "I thought winning this fight would feel final, but it's like I'm still running from them." Liam took my hand, his thumb brushing my knuckles. "You're not running, Harper. You're standing tall. They're the ones scrambling." His words were a lifeline, but the weight of my mother's letter, the mob connections, the near-death encounters, they clung to me like damp fog. The next morning, Sophia called with a bombshell. "We've got something new," she said, her voice taut with urgency. "Meet me at my office. Now." I arrived to find her pacing, a rare crack in her composed facade. She slid a folder across her desk. "These are financial records we pulled from Russo's shell company. Ethan's been taking payments from him for years, small amounts at first, then millions after your mother's death." I scanned the documents, my pulse racing. The payments lined up with Ethan's failed ventures, his NFT flop, his lavish penthouse, but one transfer stood out. $500,000, 0 cents, dated the day after my mother's funeral. "What's this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Sophia's eyes narrowed. "That's what we're digging into. It's not just a payoff, it's tied to a property deal. A warehouse in Seattle. Russo's name is all over it, and it's flagged for money laundering." My mind reeled. Money laundering? A warehouse? I thought of the kidnapping attempt, the thugs who'd grabbed me in that garage. Were they Russo's men? And what did Ethan know? I flashed back to my mother's letter, her shaky handwriting burning in my memory. A truth you need to know. Did she know about this? Was this the secret she couldn't tell me? I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath me. "There's more," Sophia said, her voice cutting through my thoughts. "We found a forged document, a codicil to your mother's will, dated a week before she died. It redirects a family heirloom, a diamond necklace, to Ethan, but the signature, it's not Margaret's." My breath caught. The necklace, my grandmother's, promised to both of us. I'd assumed Ethan had pawned it, but this was worse. He'd forged a legal document to steal it. My own brother. The revelation ignited a fire in me, but it was laced with dread. If Ethan was forging documents, working with Russo, what else had he done? The fire in my bedroom at 12, the sabotaged brakes, the poisoned drink, were they all him? Or was Russo pulling the strings? I needed answers, but every step deeper into this war felt like walking into a minefield. Sophia leaned forward. "Harper, this is bigger than a family lawsuit. Russo's connected to people who don't play games. We need to be careful." I nodded, but careful wasn't in my blood. Truth Pulse was built on diving headfirst into danger, and I wasn't about to stop now. The next week was a blur of paranoia and preparation. Truth Pulse's offices buzzed with tension as we tightened security, installed new firewalls, and hired ex-Secret Service guards. My team was loyal, but I could see the strain in their eyes. They'd believed in me, but the media circus, fueled by Ethan's leaks, was wearing them down. Then came the anonymous tip. It arrived in an unmarked envelope at my apartment, slipped under the door while Liam and I slept. Inside was a USB drive with a single file, a grainy video of Ethan meeting Russo in a dimly lit bar. Ethan was nervous, his hands fidgeting as Russo slid a briefcase across the table. The audio was muffled, but Rousseau's voice was clear at one point. "Get her to settle, or you're done." I played the video on loop, my heart pounding. Who sent this? A whistleblower? A rival of Rousseau's? Or a trap? The curiosity was maddening, but it was also a lifeline, a clue to the deeper conspiracy I was starting to unravel. The settlement conference loomed, a high-stakes showdown set in Sophia's sleek conference room. I dressed in a tailored navy suit, my armor for the battle ahead. Liam sat beside me, his quiet strength a reminder that I wasn't alone. Ethan and my father arrived with Desmond Porter, their lawyer, looking like a man who'd already lost. Ethan's bravado was gone, his face pale, his eyes darting. My father looked broken. His shoulders slumped, his once confident voice reduced to a mumble. Porter opened with a weakened demand. 15% of Truth Pulse and $5 million, 0 cents, a fair compromise. Sophia didn't blink. She slid a single sheet of paper across the table. "Our counter offer," she said, her voice ice cold. Porter's eyes widened as he read it. "This is nothing," he sputtered. "You're offering nothing." Sophia nodded. "Correct. We'll drop our countersuit for legal fees if you dismiss your claim with prejudice. No refiling. Ever." The room went still. Porter's face flushed. "This is outrageous. We have a legitimate case." Sophia's smile was lethal. "No, you don't. You have a desperate family trying to extort a woman who built an empire without them. We have evidence. Emails, financials, a forged codicil proving you planned this before Margaret Quinn's death. We have proof of Ethan's payments from Victor Rousseau, a known money launderer, and we have grounds for an inheritance fraud suit, which, in New York, can carry criminal penalties." My father gasped, his hand trembling. "Fraud?" Ethan's eyes widened, his voice cracking. "You can't prove that." Sophia raised a hand, silencing him. "We can, and we will. Your choice." The air was thick with defeat. Porter huddled with Ethan and my father in the corner, their whispers frantic. I watched them, my heart a battlefield of rage and sorrow. Why, after everything, my childhood, my mother's death, the will, why this final betrayal? They returned, Porter's confidence shattered. "We'll dismiss the suit," he said quietly. "With prejudice?" Sophia nodded, sliding the paperwork over. "Sign it." As they scrawled their signatures, I locked eyes with Ethan. "Why?" I asked, my voice raw. He looked away, his jaw tight. My father spoke, his voice barely audible. "We were desperate, Harper. After your mother, things fell apart." I leaned forward, my voice steady. "You could have asked for help, not this." Ethan's eyes flashed. "Would you have given it?" I didn't hesitate. "I'll never know. You made sure of that." The room emptied, but the weight didn't lift. Sophia shook my hand, her grip firm. "You won, Harper, cleanly." But it didn't feel clean. It felt like ash. Liam drove me home, the city blurring past. "You did what you had to," he said, his voice gentle. I nodded, but my mind was on the USB drive, the forged codicil, Rousseau's name. The lawsuit was over, but the war wasn't. That night, I opened my mother's letter again, rereading her words. Forgive me. For what? The will? The secrets? Or something I hadn't yet uncovered? I slipped the letter into my safe, next to the USB drive. Answers would come, but not tonight. The next morning, I stood in Truth Pulse's newsroom, addressing my team. "We're stronger than ever," I told them, my voice carrying a conviction I was starting to feel. This fight was personal, but it's reminded us why we do this. We chase the truth, no matter the cost. The applause was thunderous, but my eyes caught Zoe's in the crowd. She'd been with me since Columbia, my rock when my family wasn't. After the speech, she hugged me. "You're a badass, Harper, always have been." I laughed, the sound surprising me. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. That spark grew when I launched the Truth Pulse Foundation a week later, a nonprofit to mentor young journalists from broken homes. At the launch event, I met Mia Carter, an 18-year-old with a fire in her eyes and a story too familiar, a family that favored her brother, leaving her to fight alone. Her pitch, an app exposing foster care abuses, was brilliant. My parents never believed in me, she told me, her voice steady but raw. But I'm building this anyway. I saw myself in her, the girl who'd taped a ribbon to her wall vowing to rise. "You're not alone anymore," I said, stepping out of my CEO role. "I'd like to mentor you if you'll let me." Her smile was a mirror of my own resilience, a reminder that pain could forge something unbreakable. Months later, a letter arrived from my father, his handwriting frail. "I'm sorry, Harper, we failed you. Ethan's gone, chasing another scheme in Nevada. I see now how we hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm trying to be better." I read it on my balcony, Liam beside me, the lake shimmering below. I didn't reply. Not yet. Forgiveness wasn't a switch I could flip, but the letter felt like a crack in the wall I'd built. Maybe, one day, I'd let it crumble. The real turning point came when Mia's app launched, going viral and sparking a national conversation. At her release party, she grabbed the mic, her voice fierce. "Harper Quinn believed in me when my family didn't. This is for everyone who's ever been invisible. Keep fighting." The crowd roared, and I felt tears burn my eyes, not of pain, but of pride. I'd lost my family, but I'd built a new one, not of blood, but of purpose. The war had scarred me, but it had also shown me who I was. A truth teller, a survivor, a mentor. And as I stood there, surrounded by my chosen family, I knew the secrets, Rousseau's schemes, my mother's letter, couldn't break me. I was Harper Quinn, and I was just getting started.